right, folks, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us today. Just making some last-minute changes here to the show. Here we are. We're back. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul Harrell. This is the Millstone Report, and you have found you found the show. We can't do it without you, as always. We really, really appreciate you being with us. And we'll start, like we always do, this portion of the program brought to you by Red Vive Health. Why don't you go to redvivehealth.org/Paul. Check out the healing power of light, the medical benefits of red light therapy. We'll tell you more about those a little later in the show. We got a great show for you. I mean, there's a ton to get to, and I think I have planned it out to where we'll be able to cover everything. But, I mean, I want to start with just, I couldn't believe it, to actually hear it in real time, to actually see, these Doge finding massive corruption. Doge just finding absolutely massive corruption. And this is what I was messing with earlier. There we go. That's better. Doge finds massive corruption. It's been a very fluid situation here at the this morning on the show. I've been very, very busy with a lot of things. Really exciting stuff I can share with you at some other time. But, okay, so here's the deal. You got the media, and we all know what they've been saying about, how oppressive Doge is. And the bottom line is, as I've said many times on the show already, Doge is essentially confirming every single government stereotype that exists. Any stereotype that you have about government being inefficient, being wasteful, or just being filled with criminals are being confirmed before our very eyes. The idea that, people just don't spend other people's money the way they would spend their own money. It's a fact of life, but it is rampant. The corruption is rampant. And so yesterday, I couldn't believe it. Jesse Waters, this is the second time this has happened, where Elon Musk has brought a lot of his Doge engineers, as they're called, and got them to, in front of a microphone, actually listen to them. Let's hear from them. What have they found firsthand? And it's just incredible. And I just cannot get over the biggest one here is this Institute for Peace. The United States Institute for Peace being caught with, an arsenal in their building with loaded weapons, being caught deleting terabytes of data right before Doge entered the building, being caught transferring money to the Taliban, not really sure what that went for. Jesse Waters indicated that it might have gone for opium or maybe just a bribe to pay somebody off. Who knows? So we're going to start there, and we're going to go over some of these clips from last night because I think it's absolutely fascinating what's going on right now in the country. And, a lot of people don't want Elon Musk to leave. They want him to keep doing exactly what he's doing. I will say I want him to actually outperform these spending cuts. At first we heard it was going to be like $1 trillion in cuts. Now, we're hearing that he's found $150 billion in cuts. Maybe that's, just the beginning. Maybe it will get to $1 trillion. I don't know. But we need to put our foot on the gas. Got to put the foot on the gas here. All right, so let's start. This was the big deal here. This is the United States Institute for Peace. Let's listen to this clip from last night.
Yeah, and so it was by far the least peaceful agency that we've worked with, ironically.
Of course.
Additionally, we found that they were spending money on things like private jets, and they even had a $130,000 contract with a former member of the Taliban. This is real. We don't encounter that at most agencies.
Yeah.
What was the money going to the Taliban for?
So it was a contractor. They received $130,000 for generic services. And to Elon's point, there was not actually a clear description of what the contractor services were for. But
was it for opium?
Unclear.
Or weapons?
Or nothing.
Or nothing.
or a bribe.
Or, nothing.
And you naturally have to ask the question, how did we get here? Like, when the country was founded, there were only 4 agencies. Today, there are over 400. So there's been a 100x increase in the number of agencies since the founding of the nation. And thanks to President Trump, he's now signed 2 executive orders to start to reduce the number of agencies in the government, and the Institute of Peace was one of them, which is why our team went in to try and understand what was going on. And that's when we found all of the craziness, like the weapons in their armory. We found the payments to the Taliban.
Okay.
So
try to hide the evidence.
Right. So just a few hours after we got into their headquarters, we found that their chief accountant had actually deleted over a terabyte of accounting records from several years. So you'd have to ask the question, well, why would somebody do that? And the Doge team, fortunately, was able to recover that data with the help of a few great employees at the Institute of Peace. And I think the most troubling thing was they received $55 million a year from Congress, and any money that went unspent, instead of returning that to Congress, they would sweep it into a private bank account, which had no congressional oversight. And that's what they would use to fund things like events at their headquarters and the private jets. And so I think
So no accountability. That last part there is something criminals would do. I mean, that is 100% a criminal activity. Again, confirming the stereotype that people in government are criminals that are getting away with it, you know. For years, they would call, I think it was Jay Cost in his book, A Republic No More, that had a really good quote about the legal grift or legal graft. I read that book a long time ago. I think I got to interview him one time. But it was this is much worse than that. I can't remember this old quote about New York and I think the Tammany Boys or something. And it had to do with this idea of understanding what the government, getting involved in the government so you know the property that the government is going to need to buy or acquisition, and so you go ahead and buy it really, really cheap before they need it, and then you hike the price up. And this idea, because people, there's an old quote, legal graft, I think is what it is. This is the way people have operated in this country for a very long time. This is what happens, this is why government is, said to be a necessary evil, because this is the evil part of it. But to me, this just goes beyond that. Funding the Taliban, deleting evidence. This is something that, Enron was treated a lot worse for, I think, a lot less. It's just incredible to me. And then that last part about, okay, we get $55 million a year from the taxpayers. We're not going to spend all of that. We're going to take it and launder it in a private account at the end of the fiscal year, to where when Congress reappropriates, we get another $55 million, and then we're going to let that accrue. And now we've got a private bank account that is away from the prying eyes of the government, where we can do whatever we want to do. We can pay whoever we want to pay. We can bribe whoever we want to bribe. We can, like the Department of Education is apparently renting out Caesar's Palace for parties with government money, with taxpayer money. Really should call it taxpayer money and not call it government money. I'm very much guilty of that. Anyway, he finishes up here.
It's a great example because most Americans don't know what's going on at a lot of these smaller agencies, and this is, I think, the most extreme case of some of the wasteful spend that we're finding.
So the agencies are hiding money from you. They're sending it to the Taliban. They have loaded weapons in the department buildings.
Which is
Institute of Peace.
Very strange.
At the Institute of Peace.
Yes.
That's right.
So this is a cover-up when you guys roll in.
This one, yes, a cover-up. Yes.
It's a cover-up.
They did delete a vast amount of financial information. That's really a definition of a cover-up.
Isn't that illegal to delete evidence?
Yes.
Shred documents?
It is. It's certainly illegal to delete accounting records that that Congress would certainly want to know where the congressionally appropriated funds are going from taxpayers.
When you catch them going Hillary style on their computers, do you refer this to the Department of Justice?
In this case, we did refer the evidence in the accounting example to the FBI and DOJ, and we were proud to do that.
All right, so they found all the evidence, and then they referred it to the FBI, referred it to the DOJ. So it seems pretty black and white. There should be charges against the people that were responsible for this. The people running the United States Institute for Peace must be investigated, must be charged, and must be given due process, and they need to be sentenced accordingly by a jury of their peers. And we as Americans need to demand and expect nothing less. And I hope and pray that happens. I'm really hoping that, I think this time last week we were covering, I think it was Friday, that, the news broke that they arrested the judge in Wisconsin for obstructing ICE. Now you have this judge who's now saying that the border enforcement can't arrest any illegals without a warrant, which is absolutely insane. Something's got to give here. We are in the midst, I think, of a constitutional crisis in that regard. We'll have a clip from Tom Homan here in a minute because I think he's intuiting that there's going to be even more arrests of government officials, politicians who are obstructing what ICE is trying to do. But then we have this question. Okay, when Doge first came on the scene, the media, went out to dox these men, some of them young men, who were doing, I think, a service to their country. And one of the guys had an alias, and his alias was Big Balls. Okay, so Jesse Waters wants to know who at the table is Big Balls. It's actually the guy sitting right next to the guy who was just talking about the United States Institute for Peace. So, who is Big Balls?
Big Balls.
It's me.
That should be obvious.
Why do they call you Big Balls?
I just said it as my LinkedIn username.
Okay.
Well, people on LinkedIn take themselves like super seriously, and they're pretty adverse to risk. And I was like, well, I want to be neither of those things. So I said it, and honestly, I didn't even think anyone would notice.
Yeah.
So what do you
LinkedIn
do?
is so cringe.
What does Big Balls do?
Right now, I'm working on some payment computer stuff. So one of our initiatives is to root out fraud and waste. And to do that, we started looking at the payment computers. And as mentioned earlier, like, there is no accounting of what payments actually go to in the payment computer. So, like, you look at a specific line item, like $20 million. And you're like, okay, well, what is this money going to? And for the majority of payment systems, it's like, well, we don't really know.
We don't really know. The what they have found with the magic money machines that have been mentioned before should be some of the most scandalous things in American history. That's how it should be reported, but of course it's not. I mean, you've got the Uniparty. I think there's the Uniparty in general. The Democrats are the most vocal, but let's not beat around the bush. The Uniparty does not want what is happening to happen. They do not want Doge to continue to do what they're doing. Here's more.
Is the Small Business Administration giving loans to dead people over the age of 120? The answer was yes, and it was around $330 million in total. So
People with a birthday that could not possibly be real.
Yeah.
Meaning they're over 100. They're 115 years old or older. The oldest living American is 114. So it's safe to say if anybody is in the system as 115 years or older, that is fake. And also people with birth dates in the future.
What does that mean?
Well, in one case, I mean, I think the birth date, I think in one case was like
Fetuses were getting
no, not
loans.
even. No, really sort of you're talking about like your great grandchildren, like with the birth date, like I think it was like 2165.
Wow.
So more than a century from now was the birth date.
George Jetson was getting paid.
Yes, because your birthday is in the future, like the far future, not like next year.
That's incredible. Absolutely nuts. And I think we have even more on that. And this is kind of the building off of the whole Social Security, people getting Social Security checks that are dead. But the idea, the Small Business Administration is supposed to be for people that need help starting a small business, and you've got people who are, I'm the ripe old age of 100, and I'm going to get out there and be somebody. I'm going to build my business. Here's another one.
I'm helping out with retirement, and a few weeks ago I had a chance to go to the mine, and so I took a golf cart
this is
through
the mine
security.
one. Remember, this guy was on the other Fox News show a couple of weeks ago, I think. The retirement mine, where all of the documents are stored. You definitely get some sort of James Bond villain headquarters feel of what the mine is.
I'm helping out with retirement, and a few weeks ago I had a chance to go to the mine, and so I took a golf cart through security down into the side of a mountain, and entered daylight left, and I entered this whole space of caverns and roads, and we get to a metal door, and I open it up, and there in front of me is a sea of filing cabinets from the 1960s. And I'm walking around, it's super chilly, smells like paper. And, I realize as a mine, it's a great mine. It's secure, it's well lit, temperature controlled. And so the question we're asking is not, is this a good place to store physical media, which it is. It's amazing for that. The question is, why are we still using paper in 2025? So I brought something to show you of what's inside the mind.
And only the normal process for retirement can be over 6 months. So once you file your retirement papers, that's why it takes 6 months.
What is that?
So these are replica case folders that people use to retire from the government. And so these are all compiled by hand, moved around on carts through the mind. It takes many months to do that. And this one is a single retiree's paper required to leave the government.
If somebody wants to retire, they can't because it takes 6 months to compile the paper and carry the paper into a mine where it is stored. And also, all the calculations are done by hand.
Everything has
in
to be
2025.
reconciled, adjudicated. This is thicker than the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah.
And if I had to process this, I would rather do my taxes in the dark than have to go through this.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is we're bringing this process online with modern software. And I'm excited to share that as of tonight, we have 25 retirees going through an entirely online retirement process in the government for the very first time.
It's incredible. Again, every stereotype that anyone has ever had about the government is confirmed by this. And yet, it's just been allowed to exist this way in this form because everybody's making money. Everybody's getting paid. Everybody is getting money on the side. The largesse, the lack of accountability. Everybody who's a part of this Washington D.C. system benefits from it. So there's never been any incentive to change. Likewise, I've said this a million times, but in 2010 we were $12 trillion. Now we're 36, 37, 38 trillion dollars in debt. And in that span of time, for the elites, nothing bad has happened to them. Nothing has warranted any sort of avoidance of personal pain or their pocketbooks getting lighter. So why would you ever have the incentive to change? The only way we're even getting to this point is because the government is on the brink of financial collapse. I mean, I think we are. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think I'm in the planned financial. I'm in. If there's a financial collapse, it's totally planned. I'm in that camp, just because of how much money $1 trillion is, let alone 12, let alone 36, 37, 38. But it certainly takes what would be I guess you could call it just common sense. How anybody else, if you were actually coming into a private business that actually has to perform for its customers, actually has to provide the service or provide the product. If you came into this mess, this is what any CEO would do, competent CEO would start trimming the fat. But with the government, again, every stereotype confirmed, there is never any incentive to have to trim the fat because you have the serfs and the peasants and, of course, we now know we're paying high taxes to support the illusion that we actually fund the government, but they've just got magic money machines and just print themselves money, and so none of this matters. So they just know that they don't have to live like everybody else, anybody else would have to live, and it's sick, it's disgusting, it's twisted, and it's a product of a government that apparently hates its citizens. Here's more on the United States Treasury. Derek Evans posting this. Talking about $5 trillion getting spent without any label, any sort of line item about where it's actually going.
Sure. So actually, a lot of great work at the Treasury this week. One of the crazy things with regards to the Treasury is that when a payment is made, and the computers at the Treasury actually pay about $5 trillion per year, like crazy amounts, there was formerly not a budget code on there. So if a payment was made, you didn't know actually what it was for. It could have been for anything. Yeah. There was a $4 billion COVID fund in the Department of Education, and there was no receipts required, so people could just draw down on it. And when people looked into it, this wasn't us, this was before us, they found that money was being used to rent out Caesar's Palace for parties, rent out stadiums, etc. And so the one change that DOJ made with Department of Education is we had the simple requirement that if you draw down money, you must first upload a receipt. That was the only change that was made. You must upload your receipt. And upon doing so,
Yes.
nobody drew down any money anymore.
Yes, but we didn't say that we'd check the receipt. You could send a fake receipt. You could send a picture of your dog. Anything. Anything. But as soon as we asked for anything at all, suddenly the requests were like, oh, we don't need it anymore.
That's because these people don't want to go to jail. Remember back when Mark Mitchell, the head pollster of Rasmussen, was posting all of those Google trends, a couple of months ago, and the amount of people in the D.C. area who were searching for criminal defense attorney or, shredding documents, and there's a bunch of other things. It just skyrocketed. And these are all things that criminals would research if they know that they have a tough legal road ahead.
Huh, that's interesting.
They were renting Caesar's Palace.
Yes, they were like basically partying on the taxpayer money.
Stadiums.
Yes.
Leasing stadiums.
Leasing stadiums.
For what?
For parties, basically.
For parties.
Yeah.
So I've only done a little limited research on this because I really am thinking they certainly didn't bill it. I mean, if you search Caesar's Palace Department of Education, you're going to get a bunch of stories about this. Or I think because this allegation was actually also made a couple of months ago, there's a New York Post story about it. I want to find the party. Like maybe somebody already has. I just did a little limited research, kind of struck out this morning. But could we find the party? Like, was it publicized? Was there a publicized party at a stadium? Did they bill it as like a Department of Education like end of school year pizza party or something? I don't know, but certainly somebody's got to track that down. Like I would like to know. There's got to be evidence online of the party because everybody has a cell phone. What exactly was it? Where was it? Who was there? These are all great questions that I would like to have answers to, and I'm going to try to find it, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know how good my journalistic Google trend searches are, but we'll find out one way or the other. And then finally, Elon Musk and Doge reveal Department of Education officials use taxpayer dollars. Oh, no, never mind. That's a redundant tweet. Redundant X post. Before we go any further, I want to tell you about Red Vive Health and the great folks over at redvivehealth.org/Paul. It was great getting to talk to Dr. Desai yesterday. I want to remind everybody out there that there's 0% financing available, and you've got great, incredible research that's published over at redvivehealth.org/Paul. Lighting your path to wellness. Of course, it's the red light that's good for the collagen production, and it's absorbed by your skin, which leads to enhanced skin health and anti-aging. And then the second spectrum on these panels is near infrared light, which penetrates deeper into the body, reaching your bones, muscles, tissues, and even organs. And it stimulates the mitochondria. In our interview yesterday with Dr. Desai, we talked about why the mitochondria likes light or likes photons or responds so well to photons. And the way it's been explained to me in just layman's terms is because the mitochondria is stimulated and the cell does what it needs to do more efficiently, there's also increased blood flow to areas. So your body, especially if you've got pain or you've got a bruise or something like that, it's going to essentially, the cells kind of feel like they've had a workout without you having to actually exert yourself and go through a lot of the pain. You know how anytime you go through any sort of rehab, it's painful, it's sore, but you've got to do it you got to work the muscle to make it stronger again. So if you got injuries like that, the red light therapy can be a huge benefit and boost because your cells basically will kickstart themselves and do what they need to do because of that mitochondrial stimulation. So it's kind of like tricking your body into thinking that you've had, this is just me describing it, okay? You've kind of had physical therapy without actually going through the rigmarole of doing that. It's redvivehealth.org/Paul. That's redvivehealth.org/Paul. Go there now. 0% financing is available. And do your own research. Do the research for yourself and enjoy this incredible technology that Big Pharma does not want you to know about. So that's redvivehealth.org/Paul. Okay, We're going to take a 60-second break. Don't go anywhere. We're going to hear from our good friend, Mike Lindell, back here in just a moment.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. You know, I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupted this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillows only $14.98. Queens $18.98. King size only $1 more. Body pillows $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
So also, remember, right now, MyPillow having their summer savings, it's up to 80% off. You need to check it out. And again, when you check out, make sure you use my promo code PH. That's promo code PH. All right, we've got some good news for you. By the way, the rest of the program brought to you by Curable Premium Health. We'll tell you more about their great CBD products here in just a minute. We've got a great feel-good story for you. But first, we're going to set it up because it's pretty incredible what's going on. Let me introduce you to a guy named Tony Holden. Tony Holden is a guy who is an American. He's originally from Memphis and Memphis, Tennessee. I think he later was in Atlanta for a while, but he's an HVAC repairman. He's an HVAC repairman who has worked for a government contractor for 15 years, and he was stationed in Kuwait, and he was working for the military base there in Kuwait. But something tragic happened to Tony. On November 9th, 2022, 2 men approached Tony Holden and violently detained him. They were in plain clothes and became violent so quickly that Tony thought he was being kidnapped. The men beat Tony, made him bring them to his home and on base. They proceeded to kick down the door, trash the entire apartment. That's incredible that happened on base. Many times government contractors live off base, which his family actually did live off base. Most of the time, and this is just from me talking to a source, that's what happens. Government contractors don't live on base a lot of the time. The fact that this happened on base is a huge problem. Anyway, they proceeded to kick down the door, trash the entire apartment, and demanded to know where the drugs were. When they couldn't find any drugs, because Tony is a law-abiding, heavily background-checked defense contractor who also just happens to abstain from drugs and alcohol for religious reasons, they beat him again. Seeing a photo of his wife and daughter, the men forced Tony to reveal that his family lived in a second off-base apartment and led them there. When there weren't any drugs at the second apartment either, they beat Tony again, this time in front of his wife and 3-year-old daughter. Not receiving the results they wanted, they took Tony, his wife, and his daughter into the Kuwaiti desert in the dead of night. The officers physically threatened his wife and 3-year-old daughter. Tony and his family thought they were going to die that night, and nobody would ever know. Eventually, Tony was coerced into signing a written confession in Arabic to protect his family. After his signed confession, they conducted a drug test, which unsurprisingly was negative. Tony then disappeared for 2 weeks before being charged with drug possession, drug trafficking, and attempting to flee the country in court. He was not granted any legal representation. A Kuwaiti lawyer contacted Tony's family, claiming she could save Tony for $75,000. Fearing for his life, Tony and his family scrounged up the money. Nothing happened, and the entire scheme was later revealed. The lawyer was also representing an actual drug dealer with an open and shut case, but she bribed officials to have Tony charged with the dealer's crimes. The arresting officer knew nothing about Tony because they needed a scapegoat, any scapegoat, to take the fall because as arresting officers, they were entitled to generous bonuses. The judge in Tony's trial even noted that the police report was obviously fabricated because none of the officers spoke English and had falsified dialogue between themselves and Tony in English. The officers were punished, but Tony was still sentenced to 5 years in prison. Later, an internal police investigation ruled the confession as coerced, but Tony remained in prison. So when Tony appealed in April of 2023, a predicate necessary to eventually request a pardon, he was assigned a judge known for being harsh on drug cases. To make a statement about how the Kuwaiti government would handle drug use in the country, the judge did not. The judge only did not find in favor of the appeal, but then he increased Tony's sentence to 15 years. More than 2 years after his original arrest, Tony Holden was finally deported as part of an intervention by senior State Department officials. Tony was an innocent man when he was arrested, and he remains an innocent man today. This is the story. Anyway, and if this is from the website freetonyholden.com, and Tony Holden is finally home from his wrongful detention in Kuwait. We got a local Memphis affiliate reporting. Memphis native freed after detained in years in Kuwait. A University of Memphis alumni and grandfather of 6 was among 10 Americans freed from Kuwait this week. In 2022, Tony Holden was working as an HVAC technician for a U.S.-based defense contractor at Camp Arifjan, U.S. Army base, when his family said he was arrested on fabricated drug charges. The Memphis native returned to the United States on Wednesday, and in a video circulating online, thanked President Trump for bringing him home. We've got a little bit of that. Let's listen to it, shall we?
All right, Mr. President Trump, I want to thank you for what you've done for me and my family. I just mentioned to Adam that I wanted you to know, everyone on your team, everyone that have supported this effort, that you know that we greatly appreciate it, okay? I wanted you to be able to meditate on how you affected personally lives and the difference that you've made. I'm a 60-year-old grandfather and father, so I can't put words in how, excited, give all grace and honor to God, but he used instruments, and there have been a lot of people behind the scenes who have done a great work. So I wanted you to be able to hear that directly from me. And again, God bless you and your family.
So you can just imagine the absolute relief that this man's family, and the fact that his wife and daughter went through this, years ago, incredible. And it's certainly great that he's now back home. And I'll also say that in one of the stories that I read, so he's a father of 6. He's got 6 kids and 6 grandkids. Apparently, one of his children was just a baby, and of course he's been away for 2 years, so hasn't seen his, hasn't actually been able to see his, I think, daughter in 2 years. Of course, the media not saying much about it, and so there's some TikTok influencers out there that are trying to get the word out.
So while the Democrats are fighting so hard to bring back an MS-13 gang member, President Donald Trump has brought back an American citizen from Kuwait. You say, what's this American citizen? Why haven't we heard about it on the news? I'm going to be the news for you.
All right, Mr. President Trump, I want to thank you for what you've done for me and my family.
Now, you say, wait a minute, an American citizen was saved by President Donald Trump? When did MSNBC and all these other CNN and...
Shouldn't it be MS-13 NBC at this point?
Why haven't we seen it? Where's the outrage from the black liberals? Where's the thanks and the...
Yeah, they don't care about any of that. It is incredible, though. Let me see. Let me skip this story. It is incredible that now, speaking of Abrego Garcia, the body cam footage has now been released of Abrego Garcia when he was arrested, or he actually wasn't. I think he might have been detained, but he wasn't actually charged because they got an FBI note on his profile. Back in 2022, the Tennessee Highway Patrol pulled over Abrego Garcia, and he was obviously engaged in human trafficking.
How dark are your windows? Huh? How dark's the back windows?
Window?
Stand by. How dark are they?
The color?
Yeah.
From Texas is good.
How many rows have you got in here? 4?
Where?
4 seats? 4 rows of seats?
Yeah, it's 3 seats. Yeah, with him. Yeah.
Did y'all put an extra one in?
Huh?
Did y'all put another one in?
No.
that come like this?
Use the truck.
I've never seen one with that many seats in it.
What you say? He's my boss.
I said I've never seen one with that many seats.
Oh,
in
really?
It. Yeah. That's why I was asking if you'd put an extra one in.
No, it's the same. Like this.
Okay.
You know what you got, right?
Huh?
You know what you got here, right?
No.
He's hauling these people for money, is what he's doing. But sometimes they commingle dope.
No. But
He,
did you see us squatted in the back end?
there's 8 people in there.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know that. They put an extra.
They have an extra row of seats. There's 8 people in this vehicle, and if you look into it, let's see. Here's Fox 45. This is a Baltimore. So this is the Maryland Man's local affiliate. Abrego Garcia driving convicted human smuggler's vehicle during Tennessee traffic stop. So when Kilmar Abrego, what a name, what a first name, Kilmar. When Kilmar Abrego Garcia was pulled over by the Tennessee Highway Patrol in 2022, he was driving a car owned by a man convicted of human smuggling. The DHS confirmed to Fox 45 News. Abrego Garcia was pulled over by THP about 150 miles outside of Nashville for speeding and failing to maintain his lane. During the stop, the Tennessee Highway Patrol officer noticed there were 8 other people in the vehicle, and despite Abrego Garcia telling the officer that he was headed from Texas to Maryland, there was no luggage in the vehicle, according to a DHS document, leading the enforcing officer to suspect this was a human trafficking incident. All passengers gave the same home address as the subject's home address. The report suggests the passengers were intentionally not speaking enough English to provide clear answers. Abrego Garcia told the officer the vehicle belonged to his boss and he was bringing the passengers in the vehicle to Maryland for work. Fox confirmed the owner of the vehicle is Jose Ramon Hernandez Reyes. In June of 2020, Hernandez Reyes pled guilty to illegal transportation or moving of an alien, according to a news release that was from the U.S. Attorney General's Southern District of Mississippi. Hernandez Reyes was involved in a traffic stop in December 2019 in Mississippi where there were 9 people in the car. Human smuggling was suspected, according to the news release, and Homeland Security was notified. 8 of the 9 were found to be in the United States illegally. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, and after interviewing everyone, it was determined that 7 passengers were being smuggled from Houston, Texas to different locations throughout the United States. But during the Abrego Garcia traffic stop, he was not cited for the driving infraction, but was given a warning citation for driving with an expired driver's license. Why did this happen is what people are wanting to know. During the stop, a standard law enforcement database check returned information that prompted notification to the FBI. Statement from a spokesperson from the Tennessee Highway Patrol stated. So this guy, that fact alone, that he was stopped, he was engaged in human smuggling, has led many to believe, has led many to speculate that Abrego Garcia was an FBI informant under Joe Biden's personal police force, the FBI, which would confirm what many people believe, that the United States government has been running a proxy war against the American people with the Mexican drug cartels. And of course, smuggling these immigrants, these illegals, all over the nation in strategic places. I mean, I will refer you to my interview with Dr. Naomi Wolf last year. I interviewed Naomi Wolf about where they were housing all of these violent military-aged men. And the idea that, and this is what she was saying, and I'm paraphrasing, and I'll have to go back and look at the interview, but the idea was when they get the signal, it's just like what Michael Yon was saying, that they're not coming to take your jobs, they're literally coming to take your homes and your lives. there were many people who were suspecting that the coordinated, literally was a proxy war against the people. They were stationing military-aged men across the country, and they were going to, en masse, turn violent against the American people when prompted. They were going to be armed, and they were going to be set loose. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but I want you to imagine a situation where it's Butler, Pennsylvania, and the assassin or assassins were successful in actually taking out the president. And then I want you to imagine a situation where the story that we got was the same story we did get. That it was some guy that they let walk around brandishing a firearm, that some guy with with a rangefinders, and then the Secret Service came in and said, well, we didn't secure the roof because it was sloped. They would still give us the exact same. And if Donald Trump had died that day, there were many people that think we were looking at some sort of civil war, because the explanation of how it was allowed to happen was all going to be the same. We weren't going to believe it. We would have assumed our own government did it, a la JFK, and boom, what do? Well, there's now all of these illegals who now can fight for their own property against people that have had enough. I know that sounds tinfoil hat, but intuitively, it just feels like that's where we were headed. Praise the Lord that Donald Trump did not die that day. Would have been a completely different America. As we sit here today, May the 2nd, it would have been a completely different America had that happened. So yeah, now we have, let's see, do we have, where did this go? So this was good news. President Trump just signed an executive order eliminating the taxpayer subsidization for NPR and PBS. That's huge. But, okay, so speaking of Tom Homan, we teased this clip earlier. This is Tom Homan essentially saying, look, we're going to go, there's going to be more arrests.
So the president signed an executive order just this week threatening to defund sanctuary cities for their policies. Why not just arrest the leaders who are harboring and shielding illegal aliens, actually terrorists, from deportation?
Wait to see what's coming.
So,
wait till you see what's coming. Those who are harboring illegal aliens or harboring designated terrorists, wait till you see what's coming. So Tom Homan was prophetic when he talked about right before that judge was arrested, he had said something similar, and now he's saying it again. So we're gonna be watching this very, very carefully. Tulsi Gabbard is in the news because of her sit-down with Megyn Kelly, where she detailed bioweapons labs in Ukraine, as well as essentially making what all of the conspiracy theorists said about COVID, vindicating all of us once again. Listen.
Reversed. So it's a lot of what's been found is already there. But the thing that we are working with Jay Bhattacharya, the new NIH director, on with, as well as Secretary Kennedy, is looking at the gain-of-function research that, in the case of the Wuhan lab, as well as many of these other biolabs around the world, was actually U.S. funded and leads to this dangerous kind of research that, in many examples, has resulted in either a pandemic or some other major health crisis.
Well, let me ask you specifically, because we already know that EcoHealth Alliance was partnering with this Wuhan lab to do gain-of-function research.
That's right.
We just have never been able to have somebody say, it was that exact experiment that led to this COVID bug. But have we gotten there? What's the new thing that you're digging in on?
We are working on that with Jay Bhattacharya and look forward to being able to share that, hopefully very soon.
What does that say about what do other countries think? If it's, obviously where this is all going, what I believe anyway, is that the United States is responsible for the spike protein that was the thing that was so contagious and, gave people COVID. And then, of course, just like the plot for the movie V for Vendetta, they also have the vaccine. That's the cure, which was just more, which turned your cells into spike protein factories. Oddly enough, weirdly, that's why people had so much trouble with the vaccine. Not only side effects, but death. It is. What does it say? If this is true, like if the narrative is actually true, and I've asked this about Europe, like who are the godless communists today versus, NATO was created to protect the Christian Europe from godless communist Soviets, but who are the godless communists today when it's Europe that's imprisoning people for free speech and praying? Likewise, like what kind of government historically releases plagues that affect the entire world, but then blames it on other people? I guess I just think to myself, what do other countries think if, this is kind of, and there may be some, I think there obviously are going to be some red herrings. I think just blaming COVID only on China is a red herring in a lot of ways because of the U.S.-funded biolabs, because of somebody like a Ralph Barrick at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which you can look all that up. And I know he's on their radar, but it really kind of puts into perspective, like if you ask yourself, well, who are the bad guys? Like with the whole COVID situation, like who were the bad guys? Who were the purveyors of evil? And unfortunately, it all comes back to the United States government, maybe the DOD, but United States officials that had their hands all over this. And it's at least in its infancy. Certainly, once the pandemic kicked off, they were the ones managing it, diminishing therapeutics, speaking out against the scientists who were actually trying to speak the truth about what was really going on. I mean, it's like the any totalitarian government you've ever read, like in the history books. America fits that mold. And we have to come to grips with that. And will anything be done about it? This is the thing. This is where it's like Fauci was pardoned. Preemptive pardons have never been tested. Anthony Fauci should be indicted, along with a lot of other people. Probably a lot of people we don't even know their names, quite honestly, yet. Anyway, it was a fascinating interview. I also got a kick out of the fact that it was a great question by Megyn Kelly asking Tulsi Gabbard, did she feel any personal elation when she got to personally revoke Hillary Clinton's security clearance after Hillary Clinton, has been essentially slandering Tulsi Gabbard for years and years and years now. So, interesting. All right, switching gears now. Speaking of podcasts, Matt Walsh going on Tucker Carlson's podcast, and he was asked the question, should gay couples be able to adopt? This was an intriguing response. Listen.
Gay adoption. This isn't the only argument against it, but I think it is a worthwhile argument. There's never been a society anywhere on Earth, anywhere, period, where they have had two men in a romantic relationship starting a family. That's never existed. It's always been a man and a woman start a family, or in certain ancient civilizations and even some primitive ones today, you might have a man and several women. You might have polygamy.
That's a pretty common feature, I would say.
Common, certainly common. Yeah. But you never had, and why do you have polygamy? I don't support polygamy, but there was a logic to it, especially in ancient times.
Yes.
You got to create people. And the whole point of the family is to make children and care for them. A family that's headed up.
Well, also polygamy was also for the benefit of the woman, because women couldn't take care of themselves, and so they needed men to take care of them and society, and also obviously have children.
By two gay men. It's an abomination. It's just
it never happened before, and now it's happening, and that's why we call it progress, right? This is progress. It's something that's never been done.
Yeah, it's progress in the way that cancer progresses.
Very well said by Matt Walsh. Andrew T. Walker writing, gay adoption goes against God's design for the family. It elevates the desires of adults over the needs of children and denies to children what they are entitled to by nature, a mother and father. A just society would ban such adoptions and incentivize adoptions in homes with married mothers and fathers. It may sound dangerous to say this out loud, but it's true, and you should never back down from speaking the truth. I totally agree, but not everybody agrees. Glenn Greenwald, who is gay, but also is very much not a neocon and not a warmonger, and I certainly appreciate Glenn Greenwald's contributions when it came to the Edward Snowden case back in 2012. I think that was when it was, helping expose this giant surveillance state that we've constructed that is now, enslaving the people. But yeah, Glenn Greenwald is gay. He's a homosexual, and he did not like at all what Matt Walsh had to say about gay couples versus orphanages and foster care. Which is better, giving a kid to a gay couple or giving a kid to into the system? Which one is better? Listen to what he said.
A child being in foster care is far from an ideal scenario. It's very, very sad. A child going to two gay parents, I think, is worse. I think it's easily worse, actually.
Why?
It's just more disordered. It's more confusing for the child. Again, neither scenario is good. We don't like either thing, but I don't see going to gay parents as an improvement over the what they had before. So,
do we know that it screws kids up, or we just sort of intuitively know it?
I think we intuitively know, but also there's been plenty of studies done about the mental health effects of kids that grow up in these, single-sex, same-sex parent homes. There's been a lot of studies done about it, but honestly, you can look at the studies, people will fact check, and they're there. I don't need studies for this. It's the same thing with the trans topic.
So I totally agree with Matt Walsh. Glenn Greenwald doesn't. This is what Glenn Greenwald says. One has to be morally deranged or totally ignorant to the grim realities of kids lingering without parents in orphanages, shelters, and foster care, only to be expelled at 18 with no support, to believe that dark hell is better for kids than being adopted by gay couples. Well, here's the thing. This is my thought on it. The foster care, government, child protective services is naturally going to attract pedophiles. It's naturally going to attract people who want to have sexual relations with kids. It just is. And it does. And it has. Many people compare child protective services at this point, depending on which state you're in, to essentially, legalized child trafficking. In many cases. And so, you can make the argument that foster care is worse because there'll be a higher chance for molestation. But you could also make the argument that having two gay dads, your odds may not be that much better to escape that relationship without being molested. Here is this Georgia couple. I don't know if you remember this. We covered it on the show last year. The Georgia couple that was pimping out, was sexually assaulting and pimping out their adopted children, both of them boys. They were sentenced to life. A Walton County couple will spend the rest of their lives in jail without parole after being convicted of sexually abusing their two adopted children. The Al Covey Judicial Circuit District Attorney's Office, which oversees Walton and Newton County, said William and Zachary Zulock were convicted of the following charges: 6 counts of aggravated sodomy, 3 counts of aggravated child molestation, 2 counts of sexual exploitation of children, and other sexual offenses. Then the other Zulock, 2 counts of aggravated sodomy, 3 counts of aggravated child molestation, 2 counts of sodomy, 3 counts of sexual exploitation of children, 2 counts of pandering for a person under 18, and other sexual offenses. They were literally doing it themselves and pimping their kids out as well. That got me thinking, okay, well, that's just one gay couple, but let's just talk about this. I found this paper, Molestations by Homosexual Foster Parents, Newspaper Accounts versus Official Records. It's a paper written by Paul Cameron, and the paper's purpose is to assess whether a systemic tally of newspaper accounts reflect official foster parent molestation. A review of 6,444 news stories on LexisNexis Academic Universe from 1989 through 2002 about child molestation yielded 33 stories involving foster parents. Of the 25 foster parent perpetrators, at least 60% engaged in homosexuality. In Illinois, 1997 through 2002, 92 or 34% of 270 foster or adoptive parent perpetrators who engaged in substantiated sexual abuse homosexually abused their charges, I guess, or the kids in their charge. These findings suggest that the proportion of homosexual perpetrators in a systematic tally of newspaper stories is similar to the proportion of homosexual perpetrators in data sets from large entities, and put in question the current policy of utilizing homosexuals as foster and adoptive parents. So if we're putting into question utilizing homosexual couples to foster or adopt parents, I mean, why are we continuing this policy? The statistics are essentially showing, at least in this particular paper, but I think we all know it as what Matt Walsh said intuitively, that unfortunately, it just seems like if you are in that lifestyle, if you're gay and you're in that homosexual lifestyle, according to the statistics, you're going to be more likely to want to engage in that activity with your kids, because they're not your kids. And again, what Matt Walsh is saying here is exactly right. This idea, for the first time in history, like, there's always been gay people, but the idea that that they're now trying to create for themselves imitation, basically a forgery of marriage, trying to imitate a normal couple, trying to imitate a man and a woman that have the ability to produce kids, and now they're using the surrogates, paying the mother to rent their womb, and then take the child away from the mother. The one thing the child needs more than anything after it's born is its mother, and they rip the child away. I don't care if she's giving it away or not. The whole premise is inverted, it's sick, it's twisted, and it is the epitome of selfishness. Also, people can masquerade and play house as if the two gay guys are just like any other family. It's nonsense. It's a complete nonsense, and it's just factually not true. And then you look at the foster care system, and then look at the adoptive system, and then observe what actually goes on. Oh, and yeah, you have to qualify. That's not to say that there aren't heterosexual couples that abuse their kids. There certainly are. But we have to stand up for what's true, what's right, what's good, and we've got to quit calling good things evil and evil things good. We have to, especially in the conservative movement that is so tempted towards this Christless conservatism that just wants a political ideology to fix our country without anything undergirding it, the truth of the gospel undergirding it. It's going to fall. It can't stand, right? That's why if you're angry and you're red-pilled and you're not found in Christ, that's not going to fix the problem. And lastly, as I told you, as we wind down the show today, I told you earlier in the week when the Liberals won in Canada that we need to pray for our Christian brothers and sisters in Canada, because they're going to face even worse now that they've been defeated. They're going to face even worse persecution. And LifeSite News reminding us that a Liberal-funded group is now compiling a list of Canadian churches opposed to LGBT ideology. Rainbow Faith and Freedom, a Liberal-funded LGBT activist group, is compiling a database to rate Canadian religious groups on their compliance with radical gender ideology. This is inevitably going to be used, I feel, to crack down on Christians who believe what the Bible says unapologetically and refuse to kowtow to what the culture would want them to do. So continue to pray for our brothers and sisters in Canada. Before we go any further, I want to tell you about Curable CBD and their great premium health CBD products over at curable.com. Make sure you use promo code PAUL20 and save 20%. We're talking about the tinctures. We're talking about the gummies. We're talking about the muscle cream. Also the recovery soak. You really want to, I want you to know that the cream is what I use the most, but I also use the tinctures to fight inflammation internally. Also look at Curable Premium Health Pet Support and the dog treats that can alleviate your pet's joint pains. especially if they're getting older. This is something that you need to try. There's the Curable Active Muscle Cream, 2,000 milligrams. CBD fights inflammation, folks. It does so better than your NSAIDs and your other, steroid medicines. But you don't want to take those all the time. There's long-term effects that are bad. CBD, though, your body has a cannabinoid system that can receive, the molecule CBD, and it fights inflammation. It alleviates pain. The gummies are great for sleep. Go to curable.com, and remember that Curable plants the seed, they till the soil, they harvest the hemp, they send it off to third parties. They don't use any pesticides or chemicals. The third party verifies all of their claims. Curable.com, use promo code Paul20. That's curable.com. Use promo code Paul20 and save 20%. That's all the time that we have for this edition of the Millstone Report. Unless I'm providentially hindered, I'm going to be back here on Monday wishing you a happy Monday. I hope you have a blessed weekend. Now's the time where I tell you, if you don't go to church, go to church. Worship the Lord together with a common body of believers. Find a church. If you don't go to church, find a church that preaches the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ and his mighty ability to save sinners. And for those of you who do go to church, have a blessed Lord's Day. God bless everybody out there watching, and we will see you on Monday.
The very foundation of the Christian faith is based